Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Los Angeles Film Festival 2010, presented by the Los Angeles Times. I'm honored to introduce this conversation on education and the issues raised by David Guggenheim's latest film, Waiting for Superman.
So 10 years ago, I made a movie called The First Year, following 5 teachers who had never taught before in Los Angeles, East LA, Compton, Watts, Venice, Santa Monica. And there was a feeling back then, and a lot of 3 of the teachers were Teach for America. They were dreams of really changing kids' lives. But there was an overall feeling that the system was broken and that it was unfixable. And the situation was static. And as I came to examine the issue recently, as I made this movie, Lizzie and I made this movie, I have much more hope, because I think there's a new generation led by this gentleman here of pragmatists, people who said, you know, we're not going to accept all these reasons why it doesn't work. We're going to say whatever it takes.
There are so many parents all over this country fighting for a better education for their kids, and they may not know what all their options are, but they know if there's one thing that they can do for their kids, it's to give them a better education than they had. And so we found these compelling stories all over the country, but it is a little daunting to say to someone you just met, we'd like to come over tomorrow morning at 5:30 and wake up with you. I think the families that ended up in the film were incredibly brave to expose themselves the way that they did to us, and I can only think that somehow they knew that by sharing their story they could show this common plight and how difficult it is for everybody, and that when there is a good school, there aren't enough spaces.
There are just really 4 basic things that we're doing. Going out door to door, block by block, and getting the adults to come out and take responsibility for their own communities and rebuild the communities. We start with children, we call it a conveyor belt, and get the kids in a conveyor belt and stay with those kids. We're doing scale. There are 10,000 kids in our zone. We work with about 8,000 of them. We think kids do what their friends do, and if their friends are doing good things, then they'll do good things. Their friends are all doing bad things, the kids will do bad things. So you have to reach enough so that you can actually make a difference.
We thought it would be amazing to come up with a film concept that explored education. And maybe we were thinking in context of the album, we were thinking we have all these songs that we covered from different writers from that era. What if we visited the schools in each of their, that they each grew up in, and see what the status of those schools were, if they were failing, what was happening with them, and try to shine a light on what was happening. And we thought maybe we should talk to David Guggenheim about it, and maybe we should talk to Spike Lee about it, and maybe one of them would be interested in making this kind of film. And then come to find out that David Guggenheim was very interested in making this kind of film. He was actually in the process of making it already.
You know, the one thing that this movie points out, there are places, and John's on a board that's doing great work as a school. There are schools all over America that are working with these very kids that other people are failing. The reason we can't take it to scale is that you run into these impediments by the adults. We need to get the adults out of the way. Look, I could care less about the union issue. If all the children in America were doing well, I'd find something else to be, you know, I'd be fighting for the poor elephants. And, you know, I'm serious, someone's got to fight for them.
I think it's important that people learn who are running their schools in each community. And I think if you see this film, then you'll start to think about that when you're voting. You'll start to think about that when you're making decisions. Like, you should know who in your city runs the schools. Like, I know in New York, Joel Klein runs our schools. And so if something's going wrong, then he and the mayor are accountable. So who's accountable in your city? Who's accountable in your town? Who's accountable in your county?
John is right. People need to know who's running their schools. But the other thing that I would suggest that people ask is, what excuses are you using for the failure of your children? Because all of these systems, all of these schools have built-in excuses for why the children aren't learning. And once the public doesn't accept the excuse anymore, it's going to force these systems to change. But if people believe it, when you ask them to work longer, they feel abused. They're like, oh my God, you want me to work July? Come on, August? I mean, come on. I mean, so you have to understand that what we're facing, right, is a mindset that has to be turned on. My theory is the kids are all doing well, take off June, I don't care. Take off, but if the kids are all failing, right, what are you doing all of July and August if all your kids are failing?
There's one other thing that we need to do that I just want to add, and it's something that you all can help with. We need to change the culture of teaching in America, and we need to make teaching cool. Our top graduates go into finance, and clearly that's working out very well. But we need to, you know, kids that are in high school now, in junior high school, they're not sitting there, they're thinking, I want to be an astronaut, I want to be, you know, a venture capitalist. And very few of them are thinking, I want to be a teacher, because teaching is one of the most important and influential and valuable jobs I can have. And we need to really flip the whole idea. Top countries, it's like the top 10% of college graduates compete to go into teaching. This happens in Finland, this happens in Korea, and it happens in some other countries, and it doesn't happen here yet. Teach for America is making a lot of progress with that, but we need a lot more groups like that, and we need a lot more people that grow up dreaming of being a teacher.